Hello, and welcome to the third session of the International Nurse Researcher Hall of Fame. The honorees in this session are Dr. Ruth M. Kraber from the United States, Dr. Robin Dale from the United States, Dr. Sarah Day from the United States, Dr. Sharon Horner from the United States, Dr. Doris Howell from Canada, Dr. Tracy Levitt-Jones from Australia, Dr. John Lowe from the United States, Dr. Sally Lusk from the United States, Dr. Chizimuzo Tochukwu Chinonoso Oloki from the United States, and Dr. Tammy Thomas from the United States. Sigma President Ken Dion will lead today's conversation with these world-renowned researchers. Since its inception, the International Nurse Researcher Hall of Fame has been sponsored by Wiley. The conversation with the honorees will begin after this brief greeting from Wiley.
Thank you. And we're back. Okay, so I'm going to start with the advice to the emerging or early career nurse researcher question. Would anyone like to take that one on?
Sure. Oh,
Please.
I'm happy to give it a start. So I have quite a bit of advice for early career researchers. The first is to really have a systems perspective and to try and build, firstly, which many have said before, that team of mentors, a senior person within the field of nursing who can really get you connected to others. But then you need your mentors within your own clinical environment, within your own hospital system. So those mentors who can be clinical door openers. And then I would also say, in addition to that team of mentors, you also want to have coaches. I think that's kind of something that we don't talk about very often, but I think having a coach or someone that you can go to for that additional support can really make a difference. And finally, it's so important to be investing in your peer relationships. It's those friendships that with colleagues who are at the same level who you can go to for a lot of support. So I would say think about it from a systems perspective and really build that system.
Thank you. Let's come right here. Yes.
Thank you, Ruth. I would add that I think early career researchers need to be willing to take risks and to have a healthy degree of skepticism. More than curiosity, be skeptical. So if you hear things like simulation is a safe place to learn and make mistakes, We hear a lot of statements in nursing that we need to be willing to take a risk and challenge and say, is that actually true? And in what circumstances and in situations is that true or is that untrue? So be willing to take a risk. I think the other thing is to take opportunities as they present. It may not always be in your field of research, but if an opportunity presents, grab it. But then honour your commitments. You know, if you say, I'm going to help you with a literature review, then always do that, because you want to build a reputation for being consistent and honouring your commitments. And I think the last thing is be a really good team player. You know, care for others, and people will always pay it forward and include you, but you really need to pay it forward for other people as well.
Thank you. Anyone else want to take that one?
Yeah, I do. I think to remember that research is a means to an end, you need a vision. And that's what your end is. It's driven by passion. So I'm very fortunate to be able to work with a group of nurses, and we all share the same vision. So that everything that we do, you know, is seen by what is our big picture vision. So.
Thank you. All right. All right, I'm going to move on to the question of the characteristics of your team or your team members' criteria. What are you looking for in a team member? Please.
Okay. I don't know everything, therefore I need people who do. You look at people who have expertise in areas that are complementary to the project. Maybe they have more expertise in the population. Maybe they have complementary expertise as the clinical practitioner. The statistician, definitely not an area of expertise. I do know statistics, but let's have an expert in there for that. And bringing in, as other people have talked about, getting the end user, the patient, the family. For me, I'm parent-child, it's parents and kids. Get their input or insights into what you're doing so that you can fine-tune it and make it more acceptable to them.
Yes, thank you. And in addition to that, whenever I choose my team members, I always bear in mind two main things: diversity and inclusion. The future of nursing is what we look like, and it's important for the future nurses, nurse scientists, to see people who look like them. It encourages them, inspires them to move on. And inclusion is the aspect of not just bringing people somewhere, but making them feel welcome, that they're part of a team, having a shared vision towards what they're going to do, what they want to do, and who they want to be. So I think those are two main aspects I consider carefully in choosing my team members.
I'm going back to you, please.
Thank you. I think that a couple of things that I think are really important that I'm not sure I've heard is the whole idea of really making sure your knowledge brokers or knowledge end users are part of your team and that you're engaging them right from the very start of that. But I think the other thing is really having those team members who have influence as well. You know, and that influence can be as knowledge brokers or knowledge translators, that they actually have influence within their own field and influence within a larger public, political, organizational perspective that can really make the difference as to how your research gets perceived, translated, and used and taken up into practice. I think is a really important aspect of the characteristics of your research team, besides all the other things that everybody's talked about of the complementary skill sets. But that inspiration and their ability to have influence, I think, is also incredibly important.
Thank you for that. And I like what I just heard, research informing policy. Important. Yes, please.
Yes, and along those lines, when I look at the people that I want to join my research team, and this was mentioned before, I look very carefully, especially when I'm looking at senior partners, at ethics. And the way you can screen for that, of course, is to read their publications. Look at what they've published, how they've published it, and you really do need to have people on your team who can say, you know, that data is messed up. We might be able to get this published first, but the data's not right. So you need to be able to have those people who are not only agreeable, but are also the people who can say, you know, I'm sorry, but I disagree, and moving that forward. It's very important to inform health policy.
Thank you for that. So I'm going to come back around to the question about advice and drill down just a little further on that one. I know I used the word accelerate before. I'm going to change that question up just a tad to say, what advice would you give to not only accelerate, but also stay on path? I think that that's something to think about. So anyone like to take that?
I'll just jump on that and just say to stay on the path, you have to have balance in your personal and professional life. So many of us are type A personalities. If you've gone through a PhD program, you're already an overachiever. And if you get excited, you want to work on something all weekend. But I can tell you from my own experience, having balance in your life allows you to refresh, restore, and then come back a day later absolutely rejuvenated. So it really is okay to take a Saturday off.
Very good. Please.
Yeah, no, I was just going to add to that, that having a mentor who will be honest, be brutally honest with you and keep you on that path is so important. Sometimes that's, hard to hear, that, no, you're going the wrong direction, but if, that a good mentor will be honest with you and keep you on path.
Sounds like there's a story to share there. Would you want to expand on that any further?
Maybe that'll be the funny story.
Okay, we'll come back to that, please, and then we'll come back down to the end.
You need to have honed out the idea or the issue or the problem that you really want to address in your nursing research. And it may be fairly broad, but the work you're doing needs to be under this umbrella of what you're interested in, because there's going to be a lot of time where you hit the wall, you get rejections for your questions and so forth. To maintain your interest, it has to be something you really are passionate about.
Thank you. Can we send the mic down to the end, and then we'll come back to the middle? Oh, we'll send that one down that way. There we go.
So I think that it's so important to invest in teams right from the very start. And that means building your own team. That means investing in pre-docs and postdocs. And I think it's so important from the very beginning to be generous and to set a culture of generosity with your students. And that means with authorship, that means with support for conferences, that means, that can mean lots of practical things. But I think it's really important to build that culture early with, right as you're starting your career. And it's never too soon to start mentoring. I think building that culture of mentorship, even in a team, as an assistant professor supporting postdocs, as a postdoc supporting pre-doc, as a pre-doc supporting master's level students, but just building that culture of mentorship right from the very beginning, right as soon as you start.
Thank you.
One of the best advices I received from a mentor was to set goals, to have very clear goals, short-term and long-term goals, and then to find ways, supportive ways, either from mentorship or from resources, one way or the other, to be able to meet those goals. And that's been very helpful in my career.
If I might just add to that, because that's one of the things I'm very passionate about, and also taking time to celebrate the achievement of those goals. We hit the goal and we're so often on to the next thing, right? So, yes, very much. I believe there was another comment on this question.
I was just going to add, in terms of having goals, those goals should align with a clear program of research. I mentioned previously being opportunistic, and I think that's fantastic for a beginning researcher to learn a whole lot of skills and be exposed to different strategies and approaches and people. But coming back to what your goals are and what your ultimate vision is. I think as academics, perhaps more so in Australia where we have academics that sit in a university rather than crossing the boundaries, we also always have to look beyond the horizon to the person who will benefit from our research. So as an early career researcher is always thinking, why? Why does it matter? You know, how will this influence now and in the future?
Please.
You know, I think one of the things that I think that I wanted to mention was while we think about having a very clear focused area of research and a problem we're trying to address, we also need to think about being prepared to be flexible and pivot. Grants tend not to be written for our particular problem, our particular focused area of research, but hopefully you've got a small question within the bigger question that you can pursue dependent on the grant call that will allow you to still proceed, still progress and develop your program of research and make that really important contribution, but be prepared to pivot and actually address your research questions from multiple angles and multiple perspectives becomes incredibly important, and you'll still make the important and significant contribution that you're trying to achieve.
Thank you. All right, let's move on to another question here. Sigma, being a global organization, what advice would you give us and our members about connecting and collaborating internationally? Anyone?
I might just jump in then. I think it's important to that all grant applications, awards, publications, very clearly stated metrics that they are more highly ranked if there's evidence of high-level international collaboration.
Thank you.
So I have a research team that's a global pediatric oncology, and I don't think we could do any of the work that we do without, you know, collaborating with each other, because pediatric oncology is really not, the population is small, thank heavens, but we work together so well. And I just wanted to kind of talk about what you had said about taking inventory. Our group has worked together for 10 years, and we just stopped and, you know, how far have we gone? What have we achieved? And, it was like so rewarding. But now, now we have another 10-year plan of where we want to go. But we stopped and took inventory, and, that we're building on that. So.
And tell us a little bit more about that. So you stopped and took inventory. Tell us a little more.
We decided to do a manuscript. We submitted it to, we usually publish in a medical journal because it's the biggest. A lot of our work is with low and middle income countries, pediatric oncology. So our vision is to decrease the mortality, because it's very, very high in those countries for children with cancer. But we, like I said, we've worked together for 10 years, and we've developed, we've changed policy. We've developed baseline standards for nursing, which has given us a platform to improve the quality of nursing care in countries where they need something to support nursing, to value nursing. And when you have standards, it's very easy. It's a lot easier for us to come in and say, these are nursing standards. They're WHO approves them. You've got to do it. So.
Thank you. One other comment, and then I'm going to move us to our final question as we're wrapping up. Please.
So I'm leading 3 different NIH-funded international studies right now, and every single one of them grew out of a relationship with an individual, individuals that I had known for a long time, and that's where these really important research questions came from. And so what I would say for Sigma is it's all about relationships. Like, the vast majority of good research questions comes from, a group of people or 2 people feeling safe and comfortable with one another to really come up with some innovative ideas. And so I think at events like this and just facilitating those individual relationships is key.
Thank you. All right, it's time for the funny anecdote question. I know you've been saving them up, so please, somebody's got a funny story for me, I know. Or just make one up on the fly then.
I'll start out with a real story.
Okay, great.
So I'm a psychiatric nurse practitioner, and I work sometimes with our state psychiatric facility. And I always dress like this. And so when I get onto the units, I typically have the question, are you my lawyer? Are you my chaplain? And so one day I got on the all-female unit, and I got, are you my lawyer, my chaplain? I said, no, I'm the researcher here. And the lady had, she was currently in her manic phase, and she said, let me tell you what you need to research. I said, please do. She said, you need to research the food we get here. Food here is horrible. We need fresh food, so we ended up having a long conversation about gardening and okra and all kinds of things that we could do at the hospital to get fresh food. So that's my funny anecdote.
I love it. Great story. Great story. All right. Well, we're kind of coming to the end of our time here. I want to, again, how about a round of applause for this amazing group of nurse researchers? And so as we wrap up, I would love to be able to summarize all of this in a very eloquent fashion, but I'm going to do the best I can in a short amount of time. I would say that it's really important that we all communicate. I've heard communication as a theme today, that we need to communicate our results widely, but we need to communicate with everyone involved in our process, including the clients that we're developing this research to improve their lives, right? So the communication piece is important. And we heard a lot about the people that we want to have on our teams and the people that we want to interact with and their characteristics. And if I was to sum that up very briefly, it would be the characteristics and values of a Sigma nurse: love, courage, and honor. That's what we're looking for. So one more round of applause for these fantastic nurse researchers.